Hey there, I'm Darryll, your IT specialist, breaking down tech solutions to level up your digital game. You know how it is? Today I'll show you how to get file attachments from a specific item in a SharePoint list using Power Automate. This flow is great for when you need to retrieve attachments based on a unique item ID. Let's dive right in. First, just a little bit of background. I created a SharePoint list, which is what you're seeing on your screen, prior to creating this video. It has 5 columns: ID, job title, first name, last name, and attachment. I also made a form earlier to add some details into this list, so we can have some records to work with here. But today my focus is not on creating the form or the SharePoint list. My focus is on using Power Automate to pull attachments from a specific list item and send them in an email. So we're going to learn how to target one of these items, like let's say number 2 for the Fisher. Okay, we're going to target how we can get those attachments. As you can see in the Fisher here, when we open, he's got a job title Fisher, first name Joe, last name Pritchett, attachments, intro to pivot table, it's an Excel file, it's a picture, and it's a Word file. We're going to learn how to retrieve these using Flow. Here is the Power Automate website, make.powerautomate.com, and we're just going to create a new flow. All right, we'll click new flow, and I'll just create an instant cloud flow. You can create whatever type. I just prefer the instant cloud flow. We'll just get a manual trigger here and we'll say create. Let's name our flow here. This manual trigger will prompt us for the ID of the item we want to work with. If we go back to our list, each item here has an ID, and this ID is generated automatically by SharePoint when a list item is added. Let's go back to our flow. So this trigger will prompt us for an ID. And by entering the specific ID, we can pinpoint the exact item and its attachments in the list. So we're going to click the trigger and we'll say add an input. We'll say number, and then we'll just name this ID. Next, we add the get attachment action. Plus add an action, get attachment. Get attachments here. This action connects to our SharePoint lists and retrieves any files attached to the item with the ID we provided. Think of this as grabbing a list of all files associated with that one record. So here, of course, I'm just going to copy the link from my SharePoint list. I'll paste it here. Then it's given me my list, which I'm working with here, Power Automate attachments. Okay, and then the ID of the item we want. So here, this is where we're going to get the ID, which we got from the manual trigger. Get dynamic content here, and you just click see more, and here it is ID. After getting this, put in the ID, I'm now going to initialize a variable where we're going to store these attachments. All right, add an action, initialize a variable, and then we'll give this a name of attachments. Then we'll have it be an array because we want to store them in an array. We don't want a default value. I like naming my things as for best practice. So let's name this var attachments so that we know what variable it is. Next up, we're going to add another action. This action is called the get attachment content. We'll click that, site address, and then the SharePoint list. And then here we'll put the same ID, it's already there. And then here on file identifier, we're going to get the ID of this get attachment. So when we go into this dynamic content, get attachments, we've got this ID file identifier. This is what we need to put here. And as you can see, immediately I put that there, my flow wrapped it around a for each loop, because it knows we're going to loop through all the attachments of this specific item and get them. Okay. After this, we'll need to append to this variable, okay, so that we add the attachments in there. So we're going to say add an action, append to array variable. There we go. Append to an array variable. So again, I'll just name this append attachments so that it makes more sense. Then we'll select the name of attachment here, which is the name of our array. And then the value, this is where it gets interesting. We'll need to put a JSON object in here. Okay, so if you are aware of programming, objects, curly braces. So we're going to click the curly braces on our keyboard. Again, curly braces. After this syntax is very important. So you need to copy it exactly as I say. Here, you need to put the word's name because we're looking for the name of the file. Okay, and for the name, what we're going to put here is going to be the display name from the get attachments. Display name. Then we want the content, okay, of that file. And in content here, that's what we're going to get attachment content from the get attachment content action here. So this is going to loop it's going to loop each attachment in my list item, get its name and get its content, and there we'll have our attachment. Okay, so we forgot a comma here. It's telling us enter a valid JSON, put a comma. Now that error is gone. Thank you, Power Automate. After that, we're going to say add an action, and then we'll just get an approval because from here we're done. All we need to do is send that attachment. So create an approval. Let's just do first one to respond. That's all right. Title, we'll just say attachment assigned to, or just put my email. Details, I don't think I need to put any of that. Let's just get straight into the attachment, and here is where you need to pay attention. So for attachment, we're not going to add one item at a time, but we'll get this dynamically. So you need to go click this little T here, and then you dynamically get the variable attachments. This is good. So far, so good. So let's just save to make sure there's no errors. Okay, we've saved. So from the top, we get a manual trigger, and here we get an input of ID. All right, this ID will be any one of these numbers in this list here. From there, we're using the get attachment action to get the attachments of the specific list item at this ID. Okay, after that, we're initializing a variable to store the attachment, this array variable. Then from there, we are going to loop through all the attachments because there could be more than one. Okay, if we go back to our list here, let's get plumber for example. Double click, and you can see plumber only has one attachment. But if we go to the fisher, double click, you see that we've got 3 attachments here. So we need to loop through to make sure we get all the attachments in this list item. That's why we're wrapping it around the for each. And for each what? For each attachment. So this is the body of the attachment. If you can see this little output get attachments body. All right. So for each attachment, what are we doing? We're getting the content, the actual file. We give it the ID here, and we give it its identifier coming from this get attachment. After that, we are appending to this array variable which we created over here. We append, and what we're appending is a JSON object, and we are getting the name of the file and its content. So far, so good. Then after that, we're just sending an email for approval of that attachment. All right, can we test now? Let's go test. We'll just do a manual test. Continue, and here's the ID. So we need to select an ID so that we can prove. We'll select ID number 3, and if we double click here, so we check. So we're expecting in our email to get intro to pivot tables, Kanini logo, and laptops. So we're expecting to get these 3 file attachments. Let's run the flow. Click run flow. Let's watch the flow, and an email has been sent. And there we have our 3 files: Kanini, laptops to buy, and intro to pivot table. And that's it. With just a few steps, we've created a flow that retrieves file attachments from a specific SharePoint list item based on its ID, wraps them up and sends them in an email. Yeah, if you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe for more Power Automate tips and tutorials. Thanks for watching. I'm Darryll, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll tackle more IT solutions to simplify your workflow. Until next time,